I brought with me one of my students. This is Cameron Wright. He's one of my students in AP Calculus, and at the end I'm going to let him speak just a little bit as to our experiences. My project kind of grew out of last summer when I was at one of the ARI sessions. They were talking about flipped classroom. And so I started thinking, well, that might be something I want to experiment with because of the fact that so often we get bogged down in such a class, a higher math class like calculus, in just doing lecture and deliver every day. And so I was seeking to have some more student interaction into the class. So before I even found out about these grants this summer, I had began putting together PowerPoints for all of my lessons that I teach, and I had those in place because those were there. I already had worked on those, and I was looking for as well some video presentations on some calculus topics, and I had those in mind. And so when the opportunity came to seek for grant money, then I thought, well, that's a perfect opportunity. So my grant is, instead of a project necessarily, was more of a way of changing the methodology of teaching in my classroom. And so that's why it's entitled Flipping Out in AP Calculus. So as we began the year, my goals were to have more student involvement and more student engagement in those classes than what I had previously. And so I began by introducing my students to where the PowerPoints were, and I had them all stored on a Google site that was available to all of them. And as well, then I introduced them to some Khan Academy videos and where they could find that help as they needed, and Plato and different things. So that's where we began. As I began looking at this, I realized I needed some student accountability into their aspect of doing the flipped classroom, because what I was seeking was for them to do more preparation for the class outside of the classroom. And so that's kind of where we were, and so I had to provide them with some opportunities to have technology at their hand when it wasn't there. And so my grant was actually to purchase 3 Microsoft Surface tablets so that students could check those out if they didn't have technology at home, or so that they could use them in the classroom when they got finished with some of the things that we were doing, problem solving and that kind of stuff in the classroom. And so the tablets, like other people have said, we didn't get those till late in the year. Fortunately, one saving thing for me was that we got 15 laptops to go along with the Mondo pad, so I kind of captured those and brought them in my room, and we use them, and now we use them all jointly. But so one of the accountability factors then was to find a way for students to report back to me, and I found Edmodo to be a valuable resource. It is a free resource. It's kind of it's not exactly a social network, but it is a way for a teacher to go in and set up a class and invite their students to join. And so as my students join, and then we could converse back and forth in class or out of class. And then there's also actually on Edmodo a component where you can assign and have a grading system to go along with it. So when we previewed lessons outside of class, then students were asked to give me 2 or 3 questions or 2 or 3 comments about that material, and then I kind of based where to start the next day in class. Now, the one thing that I found, and you can see some of the slides here, my students are previewing different things, but one of the things I found was that the conversation in class from students was much richer. First of all, they had a focus on what we were going to be doing. They had questions in mind. They had given me questions on Edmodo. I don't understand this, or I'm sure up to this point I don't see where this is going, or could you go back and tell me why this step is in a problem-solving situation. And so the conversation in class became much richer because of that. It wasn't without problems. One of the big issues at times was Edmodo. We had some connectivity issues in the classroom. We had some people at times couldn't log into their account, and we could never figure that out. But, we're working through those, and hopefully we feel like we're getting where we need to be. So here I have, these are just some comments, some of the kinds of comments that I got from students on the Edmodo site. One of the students said, I don't understand how speed is the absolute value of velocity. I understand the rest of the PowerPoint. Well, that's a pretty good question, because that leads me into, where do I need to go next? Another student said, it would help me if we reviewed the speed and absolute value part as well. I'm also confused about the actual and marginal cost. And so, and these I took from a section back in November. Another student, I don't understand the graph on slide 5. I also need help with understanding the equation on line 6. Other than that, with some practice, I feel confident. So those are the kinds of comments, and I think that's really, really good feedback from students. And they were very comfortable. They also were able to see things that other people were having difficulty with. And so in that sense, I think it was a very powerful experience. Some comments I got from students, I asked them the other day. One student said, I feel the flipped classroom has made me more apt to learn on my own and has made me more prepared to learn on my own in college. Another student said, the PowerPoint helped me. It familiarizes me with the materials and helps me have something to refer back to when I don't remember how to do something in the unit. Edmodo is a good way to let the teacher know what I do and don't know, and that's left out at the bottom there. And so it's another thing I'll have to say is it's been a really resourceful avenue because our textbooks are so outdated. We're hopefully getting new textbooks this year, but with outdated textbooks, then we were able to go outside of the classroom box and move forward. Now, I'm going to let Cameron speak a few minutes on his experiences in my class, and then we'll take some questions.
Well, for those of you that don't know, AP Calculus is a little bit of a difficult class, and a lot of the curriculum that we're learning builds on the things that we've learned beforehand. And so having the Google site with the different PowerPoints from earlier in Calculus really helped me in case I was unsure about how to go about tackling a problem. Okay. It really helped me build on things when we got into more difficult parts of Calculus, and I think it really is going to help me with college because the high school classroom is much different than that in college. There's a lot more learning on your own, and I think that doing a lot of my work outside of the classroom with the PowerPoints is really going to help me adapt more to the college experience.
And at this point, we'll take questions and we'll wrap it up. Yes.
I have a question for Cameron, who wants to earn our future votes because he's going to run for office someday from his Twitter account. So, from the student experience, Cameron, tell us a little bit, is this something that works for you that can be used in other classes? Will you support it on your platform when you run for office?
I certainly think it helps a whole lot. I wish we had it in more of the classes. Other AP classes, I think it would help more of the students that are in those classes so that they can really start learning on their own. Because an AP class is supposed to be more of a college curriculum. So if we had that maybe AP biology or chemistry, I think we could all spend our class time better with just reviewing what we don't know and moving on to other the next curriculum. And it would really help so that we know what is building on the different topics in all those classes because they're really different. And so it really helps having that knowledge on bank to go back.
You're lucky. I almost asked you to phrase it as a haiku because of that tweet 6 days ago about putting out haikus just to see who notices.
Any other questions? Yes.
I'm curious if your class size comes into the class data. Are there any students that completely fell behind that did not the outsider class?
I have 24 students in this class, so it's rather large. A little bit diverse, but most of the students, we screen, well, I won't say screen, but most of the students in our class have an ACT score in math of 23 or higher. And so the ones that are on the lower end of that, sometimes have to get some extra help to stay caught up. And so those are some of the people that'll say, I need some more help with this, that, and the other. Then you'll have some students that say, I'm pretty much okay. I'm ready to start problem solving. But that's one of the reasons I chose to work with this group with Flipped Classroom first. I wanted a class where things were a little bit more of the same and not having so much diversity as what you would in some classes.